Everyone. My name is Mary Kim Titla. I'm a member of the San Carlos Apache tribe and currently serving as Executive Director of Unity. We're super excited to be partnering with NikeN7 for today's webinar, which is in part to celebrate Native American Heritage Month. This is part of an 8-month webinar series. So I just want to welcome everyone. You're in for an exciting time. I'm going to turn it over to Izzy Yasana with NikeN7.
Thank you, Mary Kim. Waklisi relatives. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Izzy, and I'm honored to be here today. I'm an enrolled member of the Klamath tribes. I'm Klamath, Modoc, and Filipina, and I currently reside on the traditional lands of the Tualatin Kalapuya village of the Chakapee, and Chakapee means the place of the beaver in the Tualatin Kalapuya language. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 and were removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. So I'm also in Tigard, Oregon. But currently I'm the North America Digital Brand Manager for Purpose Marketing Initiatives at Nike, as well as the internal Native American Network Leadership Team. And I'm thrilled to be moderating this discussion and be here today to give the floor to a few of our Native athletes to provide representation, visibility, inspiration to all of you, especially during these unprecedented and challenging times. So we recently launched the Winter 2020 N7 collection, which is a nod to Kyrie Irving's reconnection to his Indigenous roots. And when Kyrie received his Lakota name, Gila, which means little mountain, in a traditional ceremony, leaders from his nation, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, gifted him a handmade star quilt and a beaded medallion. Reconnecting to his Indigenous roots has been a jump towards self-empowerment and healing for Kyrie, who is now committed to giving back to Standing Rock and Indigenous communities worldwide through community advocacy, activism, and collaboration with the N7 Fund. So we hope that through the product inspiration, the overall message of reconnecting to your heritage and this discussion, we can inspire you all to be heard, seen, and rise together. So one housekeeping call out, we will open it up to the group for questions at the end, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can before our time runs out. So please put them in the chat and we'll try our best to get through them towards the end. So I'm going to kick this off by introducing our phenomenal roster of Indigenous athletes. First up, on September 26th of this year, at the age of 22, our first guest made history by becoming the first Native American to play in the National Women's Soccer League, playing for the OL Reign. She is both Navajo, San Felipe Pueblo, and is also African American. She played 4 years at Division I collegiate soccer at Wake Forest University, serving as captain for 2 years. So virtual snaps, give it up for Madison Hammond. Next up on our roster today, we have Lindy Waters III, who was raised in Norman, Oklahoma, and finished his academic career at Oklahoma State University, and is proudly a part of the Kiowa and Cherokee tribes. Lindy was named the 2018 American Indian of the Year, honored by the Intertribal Council of the 83rd American Indian Exposition. Virtual snaps for Lindy Waters. And then we got Shauna Long, Lakota, Dakota. She's from the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, and she was a Division I collegiate athlete and graduate of Lamar University. This girl gets buckets, she breaks ankles, and she actually went to play 1 season overseas in Morocco, and she currently hosts youth camps, mentors, and works within her community. Virtual snaps for Shauna Long. And last but certainly not least, Tracie Jackson, who was born and raised in Northern Arizona, on and off the Navajo res. And as a young athlete, she was inspired by N7 and saw herself represented in a way she had never seen before. This led her to pursue her dreams in design and eventually become a designer for NikeN7. Drawing influence from her Indigenous background and experience in Native arts, she creates gear that authentically represents Indigenous athletes and how they want to be seen. So with that, I'm going to kick us off with some quickfire questions in this order here. We got Shauna, Lindy, Madison, and Tracy. If you guys want to undo your videos. Awesome. Okay, so I'll go with the first one. Cooking or ordering in?
Cooking.
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 Oh, okay, I like that. Netflix, Hulu, or YouTube?
Netflix.
I'm on
Like,
that.
for sure.
Say YouTube.
Tracy, what about you?
Oh, Netflix for sure. I love those originals.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I dig it. All right, y'all. Favorite Nike shoe? Sit on it. I can only imagine your guys' collections.
Mine's classic Air Force One. It's always staple.
Staple. So many colorways.
Oh yeah.
I like
Shauna, what do you got? Oh,
the
Any Air
Max.
Maxes. Jinx. Jinx.
I think I'm gonna go with the Air Max as well.
which one? Like the Air Max 1, the 90, the 95, or just the Air Max in general? Just got to get that air.
Any iteration of the Air Max is just great.
That's fair.
I like the 270s.
Cool.
I like the Vapor Maxes.
I can vibe. Okay. What is your guys' go-to quarantine fit?
A matching sweatsuit.
Sweats for sure, and some sort of sweatshirt with a hoodie.
Definitely the sweats. I've been rocking long sleeves and beanies like inside. I don't know why, it's warm already inside.
Cool, cool, cool. Do we get everyone's quarantine fit? Lindy, did we get yours?
Just sweats, hoodie and sweats.
Okay. I can imagine the majority of us on the call are wearing sweats right now. Okay, and then last one. This should probably be an easy one for most. Navajo tacos or Indian tacos?
Well, as a Navajo, I'm gonna rock the Navajo taco because guess who made it? A Navajo, me. So, Navajo taco.
We have a joke up here where like the only place that says Navajo taco is the actual Navajo. You know, it's most often Navajo that say Navajo taco, but hey, sometimes a good Navajo taco with the beans, it is a little different. Some people don't point it out. It is a little different.
The pinto beans.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go Navajo taco.
Indian
Lindy, what you got?
Indian taco all day.
All day. The chat is blowing up. We've definitely that was a trigger for them. That's all. All right. Well, thank you guys. So I've shared a little bit about your background, but let's go down the list here. Can each of you please introduce yourself in your own words, your name, tribe, anything else that you're currently working on or would like people to know about you? We'll kick it over to Shauna first.
Madakiapi, Chankulutawi, na Shauna Long, Emachiapi, Chante, Washtea, Yuhanape, Chiuzapi, Hunkpapa, na Oglala, Hemecha, Ia Moslaha, Hemataha. Hello, everybody. My name is Red Road Woman. My English name is Shauna Long. I greet you all with a good heart today, and I'm happy to see you all. I am Hunkpapa. I'm also Yanktonay, Dakota, and Oglala. My dad is from Oglala Sioux tribe, and my mom is from Standing Rock, which is where I'm enrolled, and that's where I grew up. I currently live back on the Standing Rock res. As Izzy said, I'm doing a lot of community work. I was formerly working for our chairman and working hand in hand with our chairman. However, you know, the pandemic happened, and you know, our communities are in dire need of a lot of on the ground work. So that's kind of what I've turned to and what I'm doing. I work with our elderly program, but I also work with different food sovereignty initiatives and things like that within the program. So we kind of encompass a lot of different things. We say we wear all hats. So that's kind of what we do, especially during the pandemic. So thank you all for having me. Klamath.
Thank you. Lindy, you want to go?
I'm Lindy Waters III. I'm enrolled in Kiowa and Cherokee tribes. Currently, I'm training for the NBA, and you may or may not know, but the draft is tomorrow. So this whole week has been nerve-wracking for me. And due to the pandemic, I've been in the longest pre-draft training that anyone has ever could imagine. But I'm thankful to be here, thankful to be a part of N7. Thankful to be a part of the Unity webinar. I'm grateful for my family and N7 for giving me the opportunity to have a platform to get my story out there. But thank you and aho.
I'm Madison Hammond. I'm from the San Felipe Pueblo in New Mexico, and I'm also Navajo. Like Lindy, I'm in a very long off season now, and so I've just been in the LA area finding as much training as I can. I play professional soccer for the OL Reign, which is based up in Tacoma, Washington. So I'm trying to get away from the rain and the cold on the East Coast. So LA seemed like a good spot. But yeah, I'm just kind of focused on the off-season time and just staying safe from the pandemic that's happening and trying to make everything work so that I can still do my job and still prepare for next season.
Yat she Tracy Jackson Yunisha, Sinojini Dishla, Belagana Bushes Jean, Kia Ani Dashache, Do Belagana Dashanella. Hello, Tracy. Let me know if you're related to me in the chat because I'd love to find out new family. But originally from Northern Arizona, went to school, grew up in Flagstaff, originally from Star Mountain and Tisto on the Navajo Res. Currently working on new collections for N7. Can't really talk about them, but you know, check them out when they come out. So that's pretty much it for me. Just chilling and drawing and designing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, everyone. And of course, you're all staying safe, as I hope everyone else is as well. So this question is for Shauna and Lindy. You guys are representing as our featured athletes in the latest N7 campaign that launched this last Friday. So with basketball and sport being so ingrained in our communities, can you both talk about what sport means to our communities? And then adding on to that too, but also how have you been able to stay involved with COVID?
Luckily, I've been able to stay involved because I've been pursuing the professional career. You know, growing up, being a part of Indian teams around Oklahoma, playing in Indian tournaments here, seeing how well that they bond together whenever we're playing, how I can be myself. It just allows me to just, you know, be as comfortable as I can. And in sport, it allows us to take our mind off of, you know, real world problems or things that are going on in the background of our lives. And like a lot of people say, it's a way out. And that's sometimes how I look at it. And with sport being so ingrained in our culture, I think we get overlooked. And with us standing together and rising up together, I think we got a long ways to go, but we're definitely on the right track.
For sure. And to kind of piggyback off of what he said, you know, him being from Oklahoma, that's like the center point for basketball, I think, in Native country. And even when I was growing up, I mean, I think it was like 7th grade, we started to travel all the way to Oklahoma for weekend trips just to participate in the Native high school tourneys. And I'm like, it was true dedication. I mean, sometimes we would be in vans heading down or like some sort of bus. Sometimes they didn't have air conditioning, you know, it wasn't always the most glamorous things like you do when you go to college, but I mean, we made it happen. And I think to more so point to like what it means in the community, I mean, for me, it established a lot of lifelong friendships. And you know, traveling to those tournaments like that now, like I feel like I can travel wherever and I can go with the bare minimum because we kind of did it back in the day, you know. And basketball in general, I feel like as I've gotten older, you know, I played in college, I played a year professionally, and kind of back on the tourney trail now, and also training kids, it all kind of comes full circle, and it means everything. I mean, I think for me, a lot of times I wouldn't have had any confidence had it not been for basketball. And sometimes, especially growing up on the res, we don't know what type of households people come from and, you know, what type of background it may be, but there's always that to turn to. And like Lindy said, it's almost like that it's almost like a zone you can go to, you know, especially if it's like a weekend trip or even if it's just out to the courts. I mean, you can hear, you know, Lindy and Madison talk about their training. That's like a complete meditation time. So I think it means a lot, and I think it means a lot of healing for our people as well.
That's wonderful. I agree. It's truly healing, and then it's being able to share our cultural experiences on and off the field, the court, all of it. This is the next question is for everyone. So would love to hear, you know, what is your favorite item from this latest collection, and which item would you give from the latest collection and why, and to which family member? And I know you could probably go down your gift list of everyone, but we'll try to just like pinpoint one or two. I'll let you guys like think on it for a second, and then as soon as the first person unmutes, we'll go that route. Tracy, I mean, I know you just got the little baby blazers, so.
I know, we don't even have babies in my family. I don't know. I just wanted them because they were so cute. But I would have to say I'm obsessed with the blazers, and I definitely am gonna gift a pair to my Che. My Che loves to rock like sneakers. He loves bright colors. So I mean, in the past he's wanted the, you know, Fear of God mocks to rep, and I'm like, hey, you rep sneakers, so definitely gonna give him a pair.
I'm so glad she said the little baby sneakers. Look what I have a picture of. I'm so obsessed. My friend got them. And I'm like, you have to send me the picture because it's the cutest thing. So the blazer's up there, but I think for me it would definitely be the Kyrie shoe. And I would give it to my youngest little nephew. He's the youngest of my grandma's 46 grandchildren. So I would definitely let him rock those.
I'd probably say my favorite item would be the Air Maxes. One, they're really comfortable. Two, I like the way they look. And before, Air Max is one of my favorite Nike shoes. But I'd give a pair to my mom, definitely, for always holding it down. You know, anything I ask, she's always there for me. So anytime I can take care of her feet, I'm gonna do so.
Yes, make sure everyone gifts something for their mom this season. That's a good little soundbite.
I think my favorite are the blazers, but I think I would get the little kids versions and send them to all my little cousins because they just think I'm the coolest person ever. And so it's just really cute to see them just be like, we miss Madison. So if I saw them all in those, I think it would be really fun.
I love that. All right, so sounds like we all got our kind of gift lists figured out for now. Moving into our next question, and this is for our awesome roster of athletes here. You know, is well-known athletes from each of your guys' tribes. What are some of the cultural values or teachings that you carry with you on and off the field and the court?
So I think for me, just throughout my entire career, and I mean, this past year was my rookie season, and it was just so unconventional and up and down. And I didn't even know if I was going to be on a roster just because once the pandemic hit, things were really thrown into a loop, and I didn't know where I was going to be training. You know, once I graduated from school, there was no more structure. And so I think just for me, I've always been taught from my people that you just have to maintain a positive mindset. And if you don't, and you allow yourself to be taken down by other people's negativity and really let those bad intentions enter your space, then it's just going to like wear you down and tear you down. And so I think that once I went to, I'd say like the end of high school, I really started really believing that and seeing it and seeing other people trying to, you know, bring me to a space where I wasn't like happy and I wasn't positive, and it just takes so much energy to get out of those things. So I think for me, like that's been always the most important. It's just like controlling my positivity and like what kind of energy I bring into spaces.
I love that. Control the energy and just know the type of energy you bring into those spaces. I love that, Madison. Shauna, Lindy?
Yeah, so for me, I guess even growing up when we would play just in high school and things like that, our saying, you know, all the time was "Wowichala," which means to believe. To kind of piggyback off of what Madison said, it's like it's totally a mindset thing in a sense of I think our ancestors kind of had it figured out, and we're kind of following back to what feels innate with us, which is like that protecting our energy, protecting your spirit, protecting your space. And all of that can be done with just, you know, while you're sitting here or when you wake up in the morning and those little things. And for me, it was always important that I had, you know, sage or sweetgrass or something to kind of cleanse the space and allow for that, you know, that good energy to just come in. And even songs, I think often I have like a lot of different versions of ceremony songs or just different uplifting songs that I keep on my phone. I know sometimes it's technology allows us to kind of become in that space, especially when I was overseas. I would get really lonesome with like the 10-hour time difference, and those things I always had to kind of just turn back to. So kind of just to keep you grounded.
A value I would teach the young youth would be to respect not only yourself but others. Big thing is, you know, after a game, you go and look yourself in the mirror and you ask yourself, did you put in enough work, or did you prepare mentally, or did you do the right things? And at the end of the day, only you know how much you did or how much you practiced, how much you worked. So big thing to respect your opponents, respect yourself, but don't fear anybody.
Amazing. I love that. So we're going to control the energy. We're going to bring something, you know, from our culture into our space if we, you know, feel some type of way. And then most importantly, respecting ourselves and others. So important. Thank you guys. So this next question here is for Tracy. As an Indigenous designer at Nike, how do you hope to use your creativity and teachings from your community to indigenize the design space?
I think the biggest thing too is bringing our teachings into the design space. So I think the biggest part has been really changing the way we design and the process with design, and really, you know, talking about how Native community does it. So bringing our teachings of, like, for example, last holiday season, we talked about my great grandma and, you know, weaving, and even applying graphics, colors, basic design principles. You know, I learned it all from my great grandma, and the way she taught me was everything has a story, and everything has a meaning for why it's in, you know, the product. When you look at rug weaving, you know, so much storytelling goes into it, from actually crafting the materials and crafting your everything, the tools, to actually the finished product. So, you know, looking at the ways that, you know, in our space of Native community, how do our elders teach us, you know, being more intentional, being mindful. I mean, I think that's exactly what we're bringing, is like really that different thinking. And I mean, even with our relationship to the land, looking at materials and how do we, you know, take inspiration from materials within our community, and how do we apply that to a product. I mean, I think a lot of it is the basis of teachings. And I mean, in my process and with my teams, I'm always talking about our culture, and it's almost like lessons that they're learning. And I mean, I'm unapologetically Native in all spaces. And I mean, as a Native designer, I bring that Native perspective of, you know, living off the land, respecting the land, and then also just like, you know, being authentic to who we are and storytelling. I mean, our stories are so unique and exactly what we want to tell.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. So we know too that, you know, sport can be a great way to build confidence and help, you know, you get the tools to improve your community, but we often don't talk about the business of sport and all the career paths that you can take besides becoming a professional athlete. Tracy, would love if you could give some tips on how to research and find other careers that go beyond the court.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my focus for sports was basketball. That was my sport I played all the time. And I think I got a reality check in high school when I decided not to play anymore my junior and senior year. Just unfortunately, one of my coaches ruined basketball for me for a couple years, and I pivoted away from it completely. And I was very heartbroken. But at the same time, I'm kind of thankful for what happened, because it showed me that I can pursue other areas besides sport. And then also thinking about how could I incorporate sport into what I wanted to do. I looked at design and, I started drawing more. I came from an artisan background. I'm fourth generation artisan in my family. So I just started doing art more. And then, that really shaped my career of like, well, I could pursue this if I wanted to. And then when I went to college, the first thing I asked my advisors was, well, what major do I have to choose to design for Nike? Because I knew I wanted to design, and I knew I wanted to work for N7 since I was 14 and was exposed to N7. And then from there, it was just, getting the drive and the passion. I think one big thing is, experience. You need a lot of experience outside of university, outside of just learning. And for me, I, while I was in school from high school to college, I, enrolled, applied to art shows across the country, Native art shows, non-Native art shows. And for me, it was more about exposure and getting the experience that you need to really have those skills, because all the skills that I took from going to art shows like the Heard Museum and even going to Rutgers University to do talks, they helped me in my career. Because I'm going to be very honest and, very straightforward, but like I still technically haven't graduated university yet. I have one class that I still need to get done, and it's a general studies class. But what really helped me in my career was my experience. So where I lacked in education and getting my degree, my experience is what weighed in and really, really helped me get my job. And that experience that I had within the community and outside of the community in design was what really was the factor with helping me. So I strongly encourage getting out of your comfort zone, getting into, uncharted spaces you've never been before, and doing stuff that, hasn't been done, and feeling confident. Don't be shy. It's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable, because in those moments of being uncomfortable is when you really find out a lot about yourself. I've been uncomfortable in a lot of spaces, and I've also realized like, hey, I need to work on my public speaking. Hey, I need to collect my ideas better and really explain what I'm saying. And I think like when those uncomfortable spaces, you really start to see what skills you really have and are strong, but also what you need to refine and work on. So I would just say, don't be afraid to get uncomfortable, be confident with who you are, and just get as much experience in the real world as you can, because that's what's going to really help.
I love that, Tracy. I think what I gathered is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I live by this motto daily as well. Kevin Carroll, the Catalyst, I think first said that line to us at an N7 Sports Summit. And so be uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable is the saying. So I love that advice, Tracy. I definitely didn't, go professional route. I still try to live out my hoop dreams through Indian basketball tournaments. Shauna knows when Shauna's teams are there, my dreams fizzle out pretty quickly when I step on the court. But it's all about, just, being constantly curious and, yearning for that education and the experience that you don't possess, and that you go and you go get it. So great segue kind of into this next question here for our athletes. As an Indigenous athletes, of course, how do you use your voice or platform to give back to your communities?
I'll kick it off. So for me, I feel like social media, well, not to out my age here, but when Facebook first kind of came around were like my high school years. So as time has kind of gone on, so has the social media platform. And as a lot of you know, Standing Rock was the center of a huge battle with the DAPL pipeline. And so during that time, I had a little following just from playing basketball and having friends and traveling kind of all over the country. And my parents both traveled and played basketball. So I had, different connections in a lot of different places. But to be able to harness like donations and different things like that when we were in times of need, and especially with getting the truth out there in like what some of the protests actually were happening, just because the media was like super twisting everything that was occurring. And I just was and I'm not saying by no means I was the only, because there was tons of people that came from everywhere around the world, but to be able to be from here and to actually share the truth with people outside has been a huge thing. And especially during the pandemic right now, it's a good time for us to all kind of keep in touch with each other. And I think it's kind of bringing different tribes together in a sense of, just like this, we're all kind of able to gather here today and hear each other's stories. I think that's awesome.
As an Indigenous athlete, I use my voice in a way that allows the youth to not worry about their future as much. Being able to break barriers or knock down doors for children, not only in athletics, but also in everyday life is something that I've been trying to focus on these past couple of years, whether that's doing basketball camps or giving school supplies to kids. Whether I'm Indigenous or any other, anything else, we're all here to help each other. And I think being Indigenous, I've really learned that, seeing that from families at powwows or stomp dances. It doesn't matter what family you're from, everyone, if they need something, they're there to help. So that's how I use my voice.
I think for me, just this year and in thinking about just how important representation is. And I think that for me, being the first Native American to play in the National Women's Soccer League kind of came with a lot of responsibility. And a lot of people have asked if it's pressure, and I don't think it's bad pressure. I just think it's good pressure to force people to have conversations that they might not normally be comfortable with having, and to have somebody that's completely new in a space is something that people are going to have to get more and more comfortable with. So I'm more than happy to be the person to help, push that momentum along and make sure that Indigenous narratives are included in, narratives for equality and racial justice. Like, we should also be a part of those conversations, and it shouldn't just be reserved for a few people.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you all for sharing. So you guys, the title of our panel and the headline for this season's N7 campaign is Hear Us, See Us, Rise Together. Since both of your stories were captured as part of this work, Lindy and Shauna, can you just talk about what this sentiment meant to each of you?
It's meant a lot to me and my family, but to me especially, being able to be a part of N7, and you see the Hear Us, See Us, Rise Together, and that last word together, being a part of it, us becoming one, us becoming stronger together. I think that's the most meaningful thing for me.
For sure. And definitely it feels like it's very much so going along with the times right now. I feel like, like Madison said, there's so much going on externally that it's important to just kind of bring us back and remind us that, we are here and we can rise, whether it's rise above, whatever it is that's down here. And for me specifically, I'm from Standing Rock. I was not born here, but I've lived here my whole life until I was 18 years old. And to see, a star design or the star quilt and make it look like little beads on the shoe, that is just so amazing to me. And to be able to tell my kids and their kids as kids, like, hey, look, this was a part of something huge at Nike. And I think oftentimes, our people want to be a reminder that we are still here and, don't forget about us. And I think these are beautiful reminders every day that, to little Native babies. When I was a kid, we didn't have a Native shoe. You can ask Lindy, if we would have had a Native Kyrie shoe going to the little 3rd and 4th grade tournaments, that would have been next level and top tier. But thanks to all of you guys. And of course, big shout out to Sam, making things like this happen. This is unreal. And it's, I feel like we're being acknowledged as the awesome, people that we are, and Indigenous in all spaces. And like Tracy said earlier, being unapologetically Indigenous, each of us in our own individuality. So it's definitely heartwarming and it's super exciting. Everyone here on Standing Rock is excited about it. Everyone's been super proud thus far. So it's been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. No, yeah, I agree. And now I'm hoping, too, with Madison up in this lineup, maybe that one day there'll be, an Indigenous soccer cleat inspired by Madison, but who knows, who knows? So you all have such incredible and rich backgrounds and experiences to share with our youth. Can each of you just share one piece of advice for everyone on the call and listening in? Can take some, oh, okay, all right. Shauna's ready to go. Let's do this.
I think that's that age, No, my piece of advice would just be to trust yourself, and to take time for yourself. I feel like, those are it feels a little silly, it feels a little zen and, very basic, but oftentimes there's so much going on, that's something that I struggle with in my day-to-day. And especially right now during a pandemic, there's so much external stimulation happening, especially with our phones and computers, meetings, everyone's working kind of online. And if you're a kid growing up, you're probably doing school online, you're not seeing your friends as much and things like that. But as this life goes on and as you have to make the decisions, you always have to trust in yourself. But I always say you got to love yourself first. So make sure you're praying, make sure you're meditating, and be in that clear space to be able to trust yourself.
So important to love yourself. So important. Like, I don't know where I'm at, so I'm trying to point with my head at one of you.
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to, if you have a goal or if you have a dream, just make a plan and just stick to your plan, but don't get dissuaded when things go wrong or if things, if it's not like a linear path. And I feel like that's so important, especially this year with the pandemic. And, we just had an election and there's a lot of movements around social injustice that are happening. And there's a lot of things that can be distracting, mentally, physically, but it's okay for those things to happen. Just don't be dissuaded from your long-term goal or your long-term dream, because if everything went right, you're probably doing it wrong. So that would probably be my biggest piece of advice.
My piece of advice, it kind of piggybacks off of Madison, but it doesn't, you might have one good year and then you might hit a wall and then you might hit another wall and another one. But I do have this tattoo on me. It's kind of a friendly reminder from my dad. Means press on. Anything in type of negative event that comes into your life, you just got to press on. It's a scripture, Philippians 3, 13, 14. Something that my dad has always reminded me, countless times. But, ups and downs, everyone's going to have them. But when you get to those downs, you just got to press on.
I would have to say, kind of quoting Drake right here, but know yourself, know your worth type of thing, because being the first, especially as Indigenous people, we're doing a lot of first things for our community. And I think with being some of the first people comes a lot of friction. And so, keep strong and know yourself, know who you are, don't lose that on the path. And then also, know your worth, know you're valuable. I mean, I think it's so easy to, get insecure or feel a little uneasy in places or being uncomfortable, but know who you are and know your worth, because, you're going to get good feedback and you're going to get bad feedback. That's just realities of life. And you can't dwell on everything. You can't please everyone. And so as long as you're doing what you know is right and intuitively you should know what's right, then, people are going to support you. And when you're doing the right thing, your community is right behind you. And I think that speaks volume. And I mean, all of us here, you know, we are all first in different ways in the community and within our families. And, you know, we're learning as Indigenous people, we're gonna do some amazing stuff. Sometimes we're gonna make mistakes, but yet we all have to be together as a community and lift each other up and, you know, be there for one of another. So I would just say, like, you know, just stay who you are and know yourself, and you can do this, because I think that's the biggest thing we need to hear is the encouragement.
Absolutely, Tracy. I love that. Cue the Drake tunes. Got it in. I think for me, it was what my mom always said is just positive self-talk. Just keep talking to yourself. I'm okay. I'm worthy. I'm good. That's kind of my soundbite there. So we're actually going to move from questions in the chat. So thank you guys so much for including some questions in there for our panelists. I'm actually going to answer the first one, and then I'll share the other one. So one of the questions that comes up was, how much money does the N7 fund give out? And so since 2009, the N7 fund has awarded more than $8 million in grants to more than 270 organizations in Native America and both in the US and Canada. So wanted to share that. So again, very, very grateful that we're giving directly back to our communities to inspire sport and movement for our youth. This other question that just came up was, how has the N7 collection, or how was the N7 collection finished during quarantine, Tracy? And how are you working through your design efforts right now in the pandemic?
Definitely everything's digital. I mean, I've been working from home, which has been nice. I actually have been working better because I don't have to commute to work anymore. So it saves me 2 hours of traffic time. So I love that. But it's been all over Zoom. And I think it's actually been a lot better because we've been able to connect with more people in the community and just like in general. And it's been nice to, you know, I think before traveling was such a rigorous activity because it costs so much money and so much time. But now with Zoom, we can connect with more people in such a short amount of time that it's a easier way to get jobs done. And I think that's been the best part, is just like communicating. And I mean, I've talked to so many more people that's been so inspiring to me with collections that I'm just excited. Like, for example, like Shauna, I mean, Shauna helped me with this collection and she was my advocate, really helping me with the designs and really understanding what these designs meant to the community and, you know, how to authentically represent it. So, I mean, that's just one result from, you know, what we've had to do in the circumstances. And I think it's been for the positive, actually.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. So this question's for our professional athletes right now. How do you mentally prepare for games right now? And I would say for Shauna, like, you know, when you're going to an Indian tourney, because I've seen you before out there in Yakima, and I was like, what are you doing, Shauna? And you were like stretching, you had your headphones in. I was going into the gym. I'm like, okay, Shauna was like, she was on a whole other like vibe when she was preparing. So, but that was, you know, pre-COVID, of course.
I'd say I like to relax for the majority of the day. And then like, as you get closer to game time, you just hype it up more and more with the music. And when you start getting to be around your teammates and stuff and things, you can like have a little bit of banter before the game. And I just like to be relaxed, but make sure everybody's high energy.
I guess it depends on my mood. I mean, because sometimes, like Madison said, I'll banter with my teammates, I'll joke around, I'll be goofy, and other times I'll be completely serious and I'll put headphones on and I won't talk to anybody. So I guess it really just depends. But if I had to, you know, which one I do the most is I just goof around.
I dig that. You gotta loosen up. Tracy, what do you do before like a big presentation?
Ooh, well, I get very nervous and anxious, so I definitely have to stretch. Like right before this, I was definitely like doing some stretches and drinking some water. Definitely just trying to get in the head game and getting those last minute nerves out, I think definitely is my big thing. Even back then when I used to play basketball, I'm the shortest person was on the team, so I had to lead everyone out. So I'd always like feel like I needed to throw up before. So I think just like getting those nerves out, shaking it out,
For sure. Definitely getting in the zone. I think Izzy caught me one time getting in the zone, and typically I have my big old beats on. So like Lindy said, most often I don't like to talk to anybody. So headphones are a great teller to like, just kind of give me a second, I'm getting in the zone here. I'm getting hyped up a little. And yeah, definitely a music thing though. I have to get some music to get high energy and pumped up. A little bit more music and a little bit more time warming up now that the age is up there, but
I feel that, Shauna. A lot more time on the roller, like making sure you're warming up everything. Oh man. All right. I think this is one of our last questions, and this is for all from Tyler in the chat. Thank you. So Native people are often underrepresented in many spaces, including professional sport leagues, corporate America. And you all represent Indian country in both of these spaces. How important is it to you to see Indigenous representation in more spaces? And do you see yourselves as role models in this space for other Native peoples?
I think it's really important. Like I said earlier, I feel like I kind of answered the question a little bit with how excited I was about, Standing Rock in particular being featured. And it isn't just Standing Rock, because the star quilt and the star quilts, the honoring and the memorials and what we use it for is throughout Lakota country, which isn't limited to Standing Rock. There's tons of different Lakotas everywhere, North Dakota, South Dakota, spread out throughout tons of different reservations. But it's important to be able to kind of, I guess, pave the way for the kids coming up that I always like to share, and just to keep it absolutely real with everybody. Coming out of high school, I had an offer from University of Mary, which was here in North Dakota, and as well as UND. And the UND coach, I heard by word of mouth, I didn't want to take a chance on another Native, because they had natives quit so often. And they had gave natives from the tribes around here chances, and they just didn't often work out. And the other school, came and they wanted to sit down and talk with me, and they were like, we want you to come, but we want you to use your Native money. And so for me, those are two things that stuck out in a sense of, just even in the recruiting process, I hope that, our representation and us being able to create space for ourselves alleviates the younger generations from having to deal with those type of interactions, those type of comments, and those type of coaches, because I couldn't imagine what it would have been like to go play for that coach if that's how, they felt about us as a people. But that's why I think it's important. I think we're kind of stepping into our own new little space here, and I think it's awesome.
Thanks. Would anyone like to add?
I will. So I think in general, we as Native people should be dominating all areas, like from corporate all the way down to like grassroots, like indigenize everything. Because once you indigenize everything, it's just, we're making representation for ourselves. So, I love seeing like, my friends, I mean, OXGX, Jared, Joey and them, like those are some of my like homies. And I love what they're doing because they're doing it at such a different way than like what N7 does. And that just allows all of us, I'm speaking from design side, to do different things in different ways. And at the same time, we're dominating design from all areas of levels of community run to corporate. I mean, I don't know any other corporation that does what N7 does. And that sends its standard. I mean, why aren't corporations doing more than what they have been doing for N7, for example? And I think that's a big thing. And I just want to see more Native people making it in the world. And, I think the word role model is kind of weird for me, just because like, for me, I'm not a person who likes to idolize people, just because I think when idolizing can happen, you almost think of people as flawless, and people always are going to be, making mistakes and stuff. So I think I see myself as almost like a community some type of community run person. You know, I just want to help the community anyway. I mean, I think this collection speaks volume of how many people from Native country we got involved, like Tomas, Chelsea. I mean, Shauna was back then. I mean, I couldn't say it then, but like, you know, helping me. I mean, I think the fact that we're getting more and more people involved, not even just in design, but like in photography, you know, on our marketing side, I think that's the exposure we're seeing now. And I just want to see it from all levels of areas. And I just hope whatever you're passionate about, just go for it, because that just means you're breaking another barrier for Native country.
I think for me, like with representation comes like breaking a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of stereotypes about Native communities. And I think that when I have conversations about like where I come from and like what it means for me to be Native, it just seems like you can just see it in their eyes that they just like the images that they have rolling through are like these mid-century ideas. And I'm like, we're very modern people and there are modern Native American communities. But I think that people immediately think Native American and they're like, oh, do you live in a teepee? And I'm like, oh, we have so many things we need to talk about here. And I think that one that goes back to like how we're taught about Native Americans in like just school, because when I was, you know, doing a lot of history classes, I lived on the East Coast away from home in New Mexico. And a lot of what we learned, I was like, this doesn't make any sense because the tribes out here are so different from my tribe at home. And so I think just to get people to realize that any notion that they have about Native Americans is probably really wrong.
You know, I definitely agree. Every time somebody asks me about where I come from or how I live, I see it in their eyes. Every time I tell them I'm Native American, this is where I come from, this is my family, you know, they ask me those same questions. They're like, oh, like, do you guys live on a res? Do you guys still live in teepees? Like, I mean, like, no, like, and it comes to realization that, you know, like we aren't heard, we aren't seen. And that's something that we're definitely changing. I think with Nike and this group of people, we're definitely on the right track. And I feel as if my values match up with your guys' values, that we need to change the stigma for our youth, not just for us.
Love that. Thank you, Lindy. And that's what Ulysses said in the chat too, getting rid of the stigma for our youth. And I think each and every one of your guys' answers is so powerful, and it needs to be, you know, shared and heard. You know, Nike believes kids aren't meant to sit still, they're made to play. The N7 collection supports Nike's commitment to get kids moving through the N7 Fund, which supports organizations to provide sports and physical activity programming to kids in Native American and Indigenous communities in North America so that they can lead healthier, happier, and more successful lives. So really good, you guys. I just want to thank everyone for joining the call today. A huge, you know, special thank you to Unity for hosting our N7 family here. And huge thank you to Shauna, Lindy, Madison, Tracy for sharing this virtual space with us and your stories. For everyone out there too, make sure you hit them with a follow on Instagram, on their pages, so you can keep up with their journeys. They are doing incredible things. Lindy, we're going to be thinking about you and good thoughts with everything coming up in the next few days. Madison, for your season ahead, we're so excited and just going to be rooting for you, sister, and Shauna as well with everything you're doing with Standing Rock, and Tracy with everything you're doing in the design space. So we're just so grateful for you all. Special shout out to the visionary and GM of NikeN7, Sam McCracken. Not sure if we would all be here today representing Indigenous athletes the way we are if it wasn't for him. So huge thank you to him. I hope that you know, this inspired you all to show up every day unapologetically Indigenous. And if you want to learn more about the collection or about N7, please visit nike.com/N7 and or www.n7fund.com. Thank you guys again. Really, really appreciate you all.
Thank you.